I've been in 500 different interviews, and today I am going to show you the secrets to 100% success rate in a medical interview. Here are the steps in order. Number 1, a question and answer bank. Number 2, things you memorize. Number 3, mock interviews. Number 4, body language. Number 5, improv. Number 6, MMI or panel. Number 7, critical thinking and defending your argument. Number 8, conclusion. You can jump to the timestamps, but I would really advise, if you want to find a gift within this video for students applying to university this year, then please do stick around. The first thing we're going to look at is the question and answer bank. When you walk into that interview, what you really want is you want an attitude of confidence. So what is this question and answer bank? It's a list of all the possible questions that you are aware of from your different sources that could potentially come up, and you write possible answers for them. In the distant past, I applied to engineering at some top universities, and here you can see a list of different questions that I came up with or I had gathered from different places. So I had that confidence going into the interviews that, I have a decent chance at answering whatever is thrown at me. Don't expect yourself to go into the interview setting and try to work out the answer for the first time whilst you're there. So this should be a long list of questions, about 100 questions with 100 answers which you have checked over and understood, so you know which rough direction you need to go into if they ask you a particular question. And you may tailor these questions for each medical school. In fact, I would recommend that you do tailor them for each individual setting. A classic example is why medicine? You may answer this with some spiel. Few things to keep in mind. Use Google Docs to create a shared document which you can easily share with your teachers or your friends to really get that feedback and improve your answers and even the questions. You want a good source of questions, so you may find them from speaking to ex-students of the university, current students of the university. You may also find this from Student Room, you may find this on Reddit, you may find this on websites like Medic Portal, and so on and so forth. Your job is to verify the authenticity of these sources. So if you've heard this from an ex-student or a current student, then the chances are that this is likely to be a very good question for you to practice.
I mean, how hard can it be?
Now, students aren't supposed to share the interview details after they have done the interview. So you may find it very tricky to gain this information from current or ex-students. So keep that in mind whilst you are trying to extract this information from the students. Now, everything in this interview is marked with a strict criteria. So when you are writing your answers, what should you look out for? And here's where our next section comes in. Section 2, things you must know. The NHS values and the NHS constitution. The GMC guidelines. Capacity as related to medicine. Consent in relation to medicine. Be aware of things like the Gillick competency. The Fraser guidelines. GMC good practice guide. General ethics. Tell me about a time when you did XYZ. Technology and medicine. Popular cases such as Charlie God and other recent cases. Whistleblowing. The 2008 Health and Social Care Act. The 1998 Public Disclosure Act. The 2010 Equality Act. Multidisciplinary team. MDT. Personal questions. These could be based on your work experience, your personal statement, general motivation, general questions, and so on and so forth. Current affairs. What is going on in the news right now? Academic research. So now that we've got these ideas of all the things that you need to know and in fact memorize, you can check out my video here, how to memorize things really quickly. If you walk into an interview without knowing each item on this list that I've just mentioned, well then I'm afraid you're walking into that interview with one arm tied behind your back. The next stage is to get some practice after memorizing and understanding these points. So this is where the mock interviews come in. Now, some people argue this is probably the most important phase of your preparation. There are a few ways you can optimize this. Number 1, practice in front of the mirror yourself. So get your question bank and say the question out loud to yourself and try answering that, looking at yourself in the mirror. See how your body reacts, see how your tone is, see how your volume is. That's your basic starting point. Practice with your friends and family. They may not be able to critique you medically, but they can give you a general and overall feedback on your interview and your interviewing style.
Ultimately, of course, we know that patient autonomy is the most important factor to be considering, because they have the right to receive and refuse treatment based off of whether they're making an informed decision.
If you are doing online interviews, then of course do this prep online. And then record yourself as well. This is really good to see how you look like on a screen. You can ask alumni and school teachers to give you an additional interview. You just have to be persistent and ask. If one teacher says no, go to another teacher. Surprisingly, the school teachers again won't be super experts in general. Okay, so be aware of that, but they should hopefully be able to give you an alternative perspective onto your interviewing style and give you some feedback. The big difference comes really from getting interviewed by people who are currently at university or the alumni of the university. And this is where you're going to really stand out in comparison to the other candidates, because they will know the exact format or the nearest format to your interview. And that's where really you're going to excel. One of the major things you will find when you are recording and re-watching yourself is body language. For a lot of students, body language isn't great, which moves us nicely onto the next section, body language. Okay, I keep saying all parts are big, but I mean, they genuinely are. It's like making a biryani. You have to do each and every step in the correct order, and you have to do it well. So it really is important that each and every step is done properly and it is done to excellence to get an overall excellent interview. Disclaimer, I'm a terrible cook, so ignore the biryani advice. So with body language, you need to be aware that body language is 80% of your communications according to some authors and studies. I'm just going to go through a list of points that you should be thinking about when you are considering body language. So number one is eye contact. You really want to be making that contact with the interviewer, or in the case of a webcam, at the webcam. Secondly, hand gestures. Hand gestures are really important, okay? So if you have closed hand gestures, then that implies passive behavior. If you have open hand gestures, that implies openness and greeting the opposite party. Being slouched or slumped is another thing you can look at. Have a look at your voice control. Are you mumbling? Or are you speaking clearly and eloquently? Make sure you have a lot of enthusiasm when you are explaining your points, especially the points where you're hammering home the killer blow. Also consider smiling as you speak as much as possible. Try to remember the name of the person who's interviewing you. Use it in your interview. So for example, if Dr. McCann is interviewing you, use that at some point in the interview. You say, so Dr. McCann, I think this is how I would approach this question. Why is this? People love the sound of their own name. So it's a small point, it's a psychological point, but it's something you can incorporate alongside your body language tips that we've discussed. Please don't have an imposter syndrome, because that can negatively affect your body language.
That man's an imposter. That man is the imposter.
So know that you deserve the right to be at this interview as much as the next guy or girl. To help with your body language and your voice projection, you may also do some power poses as suggested by Susan Cain in a book and her TED Talk, Quiet. So you're doing strong poses which make you feel strong, and not timid poses which are likely to set you back. And finally, a short story time to just illustrate this point of body language. A long time ago, I was the recipient of several offers at engineering consultancy firms, and I had one final interview left, and this interview was with a relatively large company called Balfour Beatty. So you may have heard of it. It's an engineering firm and they work across the UK and globally as well. I kind of knew that I wasn't going to take this offer. I go along anyway just to see what they were going to offer me. I turn up accidentally 45 minutes late to my final interview. There were 6 other people, and in usual circumstances with 6 others to hire, they probably would have ticked me off and said,
this guy doesn't deserve the final place because look, he's not even taking it seriously. He's 45 minutes late to our final interview.
So there's kind of this role play that we have to deliver as part of the interview. They pair us up. There I am with another candidate who's trying to land this job, and I'm there really relaxed, as you would be when you've got several other offers and several other likely better offers than this company was going to offer me. This guy is there panicking, and I say to him, look, why don't we do something funny? Like, I end up tripping over, just add a bit of comedy in. And he didn't really want to veer away from the traditional route. Lo and behold, it turns out they gave me the offer anyway. I acted like I couldn't care less about the job, and I could get the job if I really wanted to. I obviously answered in the correct manner. I answered the questions correctly. I didn't put much effort in, other than the fact that I acted like I belonged there. I already got the offer. My point being that if you have the body language that you belong there, then you've done half the job. All right, improv.
Improv. Acting without a script. which means the actors must make up their own actions and dialogue as they perform the scene. Understood?
So you've got to be prepared for the unexpected in an interview. So I know I mentioned in the first stage that you should have a question and answer bank to preempt most of the questions that come up. But remember the key word being most. There will be some questions and some follow-up questions where they will try to throw you off, and you are very likely to get thrown off. So you need to be ready to improv. Have that mental mindset that I am ready to improvise. There is going to be an improvisation session that's going to happen in the interview somewhere. If you've watched the video so far and have enjoyed the content and benefited from this, then please like, subscribe, and then drop me a DM with your email so I can get you booked in for a free mock interview for 2022. Next section, MMI or panel interviews. A lot of people make a big deal about this.
Oh, it's MMI, it's panel.
It doesn't make a darn bit of difference, I think, to candidates. If it's MMI or panel, you should prepare for both in the same manner.
Both doors have tigers.
Critical thinking. Now, this is a difficult skill to build up, so you should generally be working on this from an earlier stage. What does it really involve? It involves the fact, can you back up your point? Can you defend it? And can you think about the second order effect of your choices? With reference to critical thinking, I think that's a whole different topic where we can spend ages discussing this and talking about this. I will be releasing another video in the near future talking about how to think critically. Ultimately, this video is just for signposting, and you can be successful with just this video. It is very much possible to do your learning these days on YouTube, which is something that really makes me happy, that any student can really go and learn and find out all the information they need to ace that interview. So all that is left is to say goodbye and good luck.